So, sports anime and manga are one of my favorite genres of any kind of entertainment. I've talked about them quite a bit on this channel, and I love spending my time binging these kinds of series. However, one thing that's always kind of bothered me is the stigma that follows a lot of them around. The stigma that they are less meaningful than other kinds of series. That you're just watching an exaggerated version of people playing meaningless sports. They are either a pleasant distraction from the other more intense series, or are just wish fulfillment for real-life sports fans. While sure, there are sports anime and manga that are more meaningful than others, I don't want to give the impression that as a whole sports series are just some meaningless faff you can turn your brain off to. It can be if you want to, but there tends to be a lot more to it. So what are some of the meaningful things that you can glean from sports series? Well, aside from the fact that it can make a non-sports fan actually like sports, or in my case, take sports I didn't have much respect for going in, and make me really appreciate the sport, looking at you, Hajime no Ippo and Diamond no Ace. The first thing to take note of, and something that most of these series have in common, is that sport can build character. One of the most common tropes in all sports series is some hooligan or delinquent discovering a sport and becoming a better person through it, like Jumanji and his boys from Eyeshield 21, Yuma from Hinomaru Sumo. In those cases, those guys tried to bully the main characters, but after working with their victims in sports settings, gained a newfound respect for the people they used to bully. Quiet and unassuming kids with little to no friends being able to turn their lives around by joining a sports team. Think Tsukushi from Days, Ippo from Hajime no Ippo, and Senna from Eyeshield 21. People who have high opinions of themselves being brought down to earth by seeing people better than them, or having teammates that humble them, or people at odds being made to work together on the same team. Interesting character dynamics is half the battle in a lot of sports series, and just watching these relationships form and play out can be rewarding for people who like to see character progression and or character conflict. Sports series have that kind of thing in spades. The next thing to take note of is how a sport affects certain people's lives. How a love of the game can be a force of healing and even unity. Ishido from Teppu used MMA to escape a divided and broken home, and her rivalry with Yuzuko in that series led to her enriching her own life. East Tokyo United from Giant Killing brought a relatively unassuming and unremarkable little neighborhood in Tokyo and rallied the entire community behind them, becoming the lifeblood of that neighborhood just by existing and being accessible to their community. Joe from Ashita no Joe gained an entirely new perspective on his life after being a homeless wanderer, when he took up Tange Dampei's offer to start boxing, and the people he met along the way entirely transformed him and his world views. While to a lot of people sports is nothing but a bunch of people kicking or throwing a ball around, to certain people it's the entire difference in their lives. Sport enriches and gives meaning to people's lives in ways other things can't. And seeing that perspective, even if you don't believe in it, can help you understand why so many people love playing and watching sports. Sports is healing. Sports can be togetherness. On the other side of the coin, a sports series can portray the brutal realities of the world of sport. Sports can be a force of massive positivity and change, but it can be taxing, and it has its downsides. I touched upon the duality of sport in my video on Ashita no Joe, so I won't go into crazy detail, but sports can give and sports can also take. In Ashita no Joe, we witness the intense brutality of the world of combat sports, from over-the-top training regimens, to in-ring deaths, to permanent psychological damage, and it's the same world that gave Joe everything, that gave him meaning, that gave him great friends, and garnered him respect in his community, and even around the world. Sports can be fickle. So take the case of Aragaki Nagisa from Hanebado. Her story was incredibly interesting because within her you see a problem permeating the world of sport. People in that series tend to take away her credit because she's tall, so it's perceived that she doesn't have to work as hard because of her size advantage. This is especially pertinent in women's sports where the athletes are smaller on average. Despite the fact that Nagisa works incredibly hard and dedicates her life to badminton, some people will not recognize that because of the way she looks. In the real world, this is something that afflicts a lot of bigger athletes, and basically any African athlete. Because of notions of scientific racism, it's perceived that black athletes have an advantage over white ones. So when black athletes succeed, a lot of the time their success is accredited not to the hard work, dedication, intelligence, and awareness of the athlete, but to their size and or genetics, which supposedly makes it easier for them. I don't need to go on a diatribe to prove how much of a fallacy this is, since the best athletes in the world, regardless of size and race, need multiple elements to succeed, like awareness, on-field intelligence, flexibility to work with teammates, dedication to the sport itself, and to self-improvement, but people will go for easier narratives just to discredit those who excel. Anyway, there's also King's Avatar. Look at how main character Yeju is treated despite his immense talent and acumen as an esports competitor. Once he's seen as too old and over the hill, his team treats him like trash, and the sport moves on without him. This points to the brutal business aspect of professional sports, one that favors consistent progress and success, with very little margin for error. So a lot of sports series don't just suck up to the sport they're portraying, but can show the crappier sides of the sports we know and love. And that can be illuminating for people with a romantic view of sports, or who just want to know what sports is like, good or bad. There are also sports anime that are more metaphorical, like Kaiji, which technically does count, and once again Ashita no Joe. Those series, through competition and sport, like to signify the harshness of life, about being the little guy having to scratch and crawl your way up in a very unfair world. So in those series, the world and really the establishment, if that makes any sense, are the opponents for those kinds of characters. It's not always overt. So in summation, sports series are not only good entertainment if you want to see some hype, but sports anime are not lesser than other entertainment, say psychological series or drama series, because in the real world, sports are full of narratives, either within the sport itself with rivalries, beef, political and social dynamics shaping a certain league, underdog stories, etc., etc. But sports is also a reflection of humanity, of ways we can come together despite our various differences, of ways we can prove that the world isn't as shitty as it seems sometimes. Sports can heal us. Sports can unite communities and provide a myriad of memories. It can bring people out of poverty. It can be an opportunity. But it can also be brutal, as the long arm of business permeates professional sport and turns it into a cog in the capitalist machine. Racism, stereotyping, and discrimination can and have manifested itself into the world of sports. Politics has seeped into sports and turned it into a battleground in many parts of the world. And even on the part of the athletes, greed and nepotism can suck the life out of a sports league as the unfortunate business realities of sports continue to rear their ugly heads. Sports, for all of its romanticism as an easy gig, can be just as brutal as any other occupation, sometimes more so, and full of a plethora of systemic issues which need addressing. So I think it's important to try and watch or read sports series. While it might not seem as important as militaries moving, politicians doing politics, or shadowy organizations controlling society, sport is not only the history of competition, it is also the story of us. It is a reflection of everything human, and you can get a lot out of watching or reading a sports series, even if it seems meaningless on the surface. So anyway, thank you anyone for watching this short video. If you made it this far, I plan to do a 900 subscriber stream on Friday, June 12th at around 1 PM Eastern Standard Time. So feel free to join as we delve into part 2 of Silver Soul Calibur, with some new guests. Thanks again for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video, and take care.